And what I didn't do at the last meeting is just give you some ground rules. So we like to keep this about an hour. So in an hour, we'll adjourn. You can still kind of hang out and ask questions. Thank you everybody for coming. This is the second of the 2 meetings that we have on amending our sustainability regulations. Amanda Poindexter, who's a consultant with the town, is going to give the presentation with us today. We have Jim Wilson from the building department, Sarah Nagoni with the planning department, and we have Scott Mills, who's also a consultant with the town, who's going to be offering some training sessions. So, Jim, do you want to say anything?
Thanks for coming. Thanks for Amanda's hard work, and I'm here to learn as well.
Thank you. So I don't have very many rules, but one of them is I get to clean the day. So that means I get to kind of try to have order if it gets out of order. The restroom is just on the other side here, just around here. So what we're going to do is Amanda's going to give our presentation, and we're not going to, because we want to have her get through the presentation, we're not going to ask questions during the presentation. When she's done, then we'll open it up for questions.
Does anyone needs a pen and paper to write down questions? We have some up here. Or wave your hand. I can grab you one.
And I see that you all got your handouts. So also I just want to talk before I turn it over to Amanda.
I don't want to write on this.
We're still kind of debating. We may have the first reading as early as next Tuesday, followed by the second reading would be the second Tuesday in April. There's a chance that we might kick it back and have like just an update at the next meeting, kind of depending a little bit about what we hear from everybody by email, like what we hear at these meetings. And then the second reading would be the fourth Tuesday of April. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda, and we'll take it from there.
All right, everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Amanda Poindexter. As Susan said, I am a consultant with the town, and I also am a member of the Basalt Green team. So last year, we adopted our climate action plan. And our climate action plan is baselined off of our 2014 emission levels. And right now, we are looking to reduce those emissions 25% by 2025 and 80% by 2050. So these are very aggressive goals, and as you can see here, buildings account for a lot of the emissions. So we're gonna address the buildings and use that to hit our targets. Last year, we also adopted the 2015 IECC. We just want to focus on the efficiency of not only existing buildings, but also the new ones. Our significant changes while adopting this code and also implementing the certain compliance paths you can take with this code. Residential, we now require that you perform a blower door test. The threshold is 3 air changes an hour. I'll talk about that a little later. We also are requiring mechanical ventilation. The prescriptive insulation requirements have increased, and we're also looking to have our mechanical systems sized with the manuals S and J. We also have, outside of the code, within the checklist, you'll see minimum threshold levels for site, water use, renewable energy, and others. We also are requiring a moisture management strategy. A lot of these codes are requiring continuous insulation, and we just want to make sure that the walls are able to dry. On the commercial side, we'll need to see a continuous air barrier on your construction documents, as well as the prescriptive insulation requirements had increased, and ventilation is required. It's not only mechanical, it can be natural. Also, sizing the mechanical systems accordingly. We added more categories for different building types as we're seeing them come through the building department, and we also are requiring the moisture management strategy. With the IECC, there's more compliance paths. It kind of lets you be more flexible with your design and we're kind of focusing more on holistic thinking instead of system component thinking. We are also requiring a continuing education aspect to this, and I will speak about that more. Why? Why should we do this? Well, not only is your building going to be more healthy, it's going to last longer, you're going to have, healthier people, you're going to have more productive workforce, and with the continuing education, you're going to be able to stay competitive and stay on the front line. Building airtight. You can see we put a lot of holes in our buildings, so we're trying to address that and keep the building tight. So the basic concept, they're vital, and we want to see one uninterrupted airtight envelope enclosing the whole heated space. So we're separating the unconditioned from the conditioned space, and everyone on the project should understand that. There's a lot of people that go through a construction project, and everyone should be on the same page. The blower door test is going to be third-party verified, and there is a list on Corps' website of these people that perform that. Also, proper air sealing for all the holes we're putting in our envelope. So this is a typical detail I see on the construction documents to remind everyone about the air sealing aspect. Build tight, ventilate right. We're tightening up our buildings, but we also want to, have them ventilate correctly.
Are you doing continuous air sealing on residential as well? I had to break it because
Well, I'll answer that later.
Okay.
So the residential insulation requirements have creeped up. And through the prescriptive path, you would have to adhere to all these. But once we move into the performance or net zero energy, you're kind of able to trade off increased insulation for decreased window performance. We're going to trade off the R values with the U values, and you have a little more flexibility. And also moisture management. This is a common problem for homes in this climate zone and buildings in general, is water's always going to move from warm to cold and from more to less. So we just want to make sure that the walls are able to dry when they need to. Also, the slab on grade is a good way to prevent condensation. But also, if you don't want to do this, and you can still adhere to the code by doing the performance path. Here's our thermal envelope. Again, keeping the non-conditioned space separate from the conditioned space. And here are our commercial insulation requirements. I highlighted our climate zone. So you can kind of look at those. Again, a lot of continuous insulation. There are many different compliance paths. So this flow chart kind of helps bring that to you visually. Within the IECC, there will be mandatory requirements. It has to do with the air leakage and, separating fuel burning appliances, as well as different fenestration requirements. So those are all listed in the code. And then you can see here we have the prescriptive net zero energy and performance. With the net zero energy, if you do choose to do that path, we are discounting your permit cost 25%. And then here is our residential side. Again, we have prescriptive. The ASHRAE performance, that's a Department of Energy path, as well as the other performance is building your energy. You have to just show that your annual energy cost is going to be less than the reference design. And this is wrong. This says LEED silver. It's actually LEED gold. And if you are doing a LEED building and your pursuing the gold certification, that's going to exempt you from our checklist. Our continuing education. Again, this is anyone coming in to renew their best test, apply for a permit, or renew their license. We want to see 2 hours of continuing education, and we are going to offer this for free by Scott Mills through the town. And then there's also other alternatives that you could do pretty much at no cost. And we're going to, 2018 is going to be our grace period. You can still get your permit, renew your license, but come 2019, we'll need to see this continuing education. Questions?
So, Amanda, before we do the questions, do you want?
Oh, you want me to bring up?
Yeah, would you mind pulling up, first pull up the easy table, that shows the SB1 and then the SBR2, and maybe redefine for everybody what we're looking for in SBR1 and SBR2, if they're not as familiar with the current code.
So right now, and you guys all have a copy of this, but this is the checklist. Anything in red has been changed or added.
And maybe just start at the beginning, that SBR1 is where we get our single family and our duplex, and a few townhomes that usually doesn't get for townhomes, if they're built as a single family construction. That's what SBR1 is, so go ahead.
Yeah, and you can see at the bottom. Oh, thank you. So here are our standard requirements. We have our site water conservation section, recycling and reuse, as well as framing materials. Then we'll move into energy. And this is meant to be, we're not referencing exact numbers because we want to keep this going as we adopt the newer codes. We also have additional energy measures, and we're addressing our indoor air quality. You will see at the bottom the required points for each size home. And we are kind of eliminating the minimum home size because we do anticipate seeing more tiny houses, and we want to address those. There's 3 different tabs in each tab. So this is if you're going the prescriptive route. We have performance and net zero energy, and the only thing that is changing is this column, which is the minimum required threshold for each section. So I actually have, this is kind of a better reference for that. So you'll see if you go prescriptive, you have all these minimum point requirements, whereas performance, we already know you're adhering to a certain energy use, so we're eliminating that minimum requirement, as well as the net zero energy ready does address indoor air quality, so that's why we're not requiring a minimum there. As far as our type 2, this is our commercial multifamily. And we just have one tab for this. And you'll see at the bottom, we have numerous different thresholds depending on how you're building, what category your building falls under. You'll see we have different levels of remodels taken into account, as well as remodels for historic landmark buildings and all sorts of commercial buildings. And you'll see here, this is our mandatory, these columns. If your building listed here is falling into any of these categories, that's where it's gonna be, and like you have a checklist. Let me show you. So we have requirements here, and then you're only required if it's checked on that column. Does that make sense? Trying to make things a little complex, but all good. Also, I had listed, this is a neat little app and a website, Construction Instruction, and they have a lot of videos and articles on pretty much anything you want to know. So that's kind of neat. No questions?
Did you show the easy chart for the commercial and the requirement points?
Or the flow chart?
I don't know that you showed on the flow chart or the simple like table of kind of the minimum points on the SBI show. She'll repeat it.
So that one, yeah, I mean, that's just reflected in our Excel checklist. Let's type 1. So when you do submit for permit, we have a column here. This is a score you give yourself, and then we'll go back and score what we have, and then any conflicts, we'll just, we're open to talk about them or work with you to see where we can get other points. No questions?
Now, can I ask you about continuous?
Oh, yeah.
So is it on continuous, air sealing on residential the same as commercial?
Yes.
Okay, it's just what's.
Correct.
I just wanted to.
Thank you.
And one other thing, I'm gonna be doing the training, and it's not net zero. It's the Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready program. If you're, just to give you an idea of the differences, based on her scoring is 100 to 0. Based on net zero would be a 0 score. Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready in our climate zone is around 50, between 50 and 60. So the training on that, the reason we're bringing that in is that they've developed the building techniques to do a high-performance building without getting into really difficult situations of extreme insulation, and going way, way beyond. It's actually very simplified. The envelope's on the 2012 codes. So that it's very simplified, but what it is they've taken all the pieces and they look at the building as a whole system. And so it's a whole system approach to what we're doing. So as opposed to picking and choosing through all these different choices, trying to get a proper score by using the simplified system, you can get to the same place a lot more quickly and easily. And that's why we want all the builders to train it.
Right.
And
I did forget to mention that, outside of the prescriptive path, there are a lot of, free software that can help you be compliant with this. If you're going to do the UA alternative, where you're trading off R values and U values, you're going to use ResCheck or ComCheck, residential. ResCheck for residential, ComCheck for commercial, as well as performance path. We have REM design, REM rates, energy gauge, just a lot of nice tools out there to help you make it easier. Not only on us, but on yourself.
But the last point I was going to make was, and it would be great if all the architects and designers would take this class also, because again, it simplifies doing high performance buildings.
So if you guys, once you get kind of a chance to look at everything more closely and you see something that hasn't been addressed, please shoot me an email and let me know. this is still pretty fluid, so open to any ideas or opinions.
How does this relate to remodels?
So this will be, like I said, on the commercial side, and actually for residential and commercial, we're tying it back to the IEBC, the existing building code, and there's different levels of remodels, and whatever level that catches you, it's a certain point threshold.
Okay.
So anything, the smaller remodels, you're exempt from this. And then it just gets ramped up with the amount of work that's getting redone. No questions? Really?
You just said, did it so well.
Yes.
I have one question,
Sure.
just to keep it flowing. But are you gonna do any of the classes as a run-through this year, or are you gonna wait till next year to start classes?
So I'm not exactly sure when your classes are going to start, but the U.S. Green Building Council, as well as CORE and CLEAR, have some events coming up pretty soon that would qualify for your continuing education.
So just, we've budgeted, so we are gonna have Scott Mills' class, and we'll be scheduling that soon. So the idea is that we would be offering these things in 2018, starting in January 1st, 2019. You would have needed to have 2 hours of continuing education before you get a Basalt building permit. So you can use any of your 2018 training. And I don't know if, Amanda, you have that other kind of list of all the other trainings that you can use. Scott's makes most sense if you're doing residential, obviously. And of course, some of the, I think, techniques can carry over to commercial, but there are other opportunities, and we plan on working more with, here, want to pull that? Yeah, that's perfect.
So this is a list we have right now for 2018. And then you'll see there's also online options as well.
So this continuing education is aimed at contractors, from what I can tell? What about design professionals?
Anybody can take the training. The idea was the person that comes in and gets the permit itself and makes the permit application is the person that would be required to have the training. But anybody could come and take the training that we're offering for free. But the idea, I think that the general idea when the team talked about it is to try to really get the team kind of understanding the basic principles. So we didn't want just like one member of the team that happened to be the architect to be the person that had taken the training.
Mm-hmm.
This class doesn't count as a continuing education?
No, it won't count yet, but we'll make it easy for you. We'll have, if we have it here, we'll probably have pizza again, so we can serve you.
Exactly.
Pizza was the payoff tonight.
And actually, I have more information on this May 18th event. That's going to be Clear's hosting this event in Carbondale, and it's going to be kind of a building symposium, all-day thing. The founder of Architecture 2030 is the keynote, and we also have an individual from RMI that's going to be there, and we have ideas for panel discussions as well as breakouts and charrettes.
And there's some fun things that we talked about, whether they were too much fun, but we have in July the annual building bike tour. So we'll be counting that as our continuing education. We had a little bit of discussion of But we wanted, I think the general idea is to kind of ease this in and not to make it too painful.
Exactly.
So that one might be a good one. Want to talk about that one, Amanda?
Sure. So every year, the U.S. Green Building Council does a building bike ride tour. Last year, we were kind of in Carbondale. We went to kind of actually a living building, produces more energy than it uses, a home instant tank. And we also biked down to the Habitat Restore Center. And the year before we did one here, and we checked out RMI. We went to the gardens by the high school, as well as the Habitat. And yeah, it's always a pretty fun event. You're learning stuff and being active. Yeah.
But I would urge you to, I think before we adopt this, we would rather have you, review it and ask questions than, walk in the door. We did spend quite a bit of time trying to ask some tough questions. We ran the scenarios against some existing developments in Basalt. And I think one of the areas of biggest struggle was maybe in the SBR2, which is the commercial and the multifamily, and how we were dealing with tenant finishes and how we were dealing with what's the difference between an office building and a warehouse, and how to deal with remodels, and so we were trying to relate it back to an existing construction code. So, if you think that there's something that we haven't thought of, give Amanda a buzz. It's like I said, like right now, we may go as early as the 27th of March with first reading, with the second reading is like April 14th or something. I left my piece of paper back in the office, but, so earlier than later, give us your questions.
Right, yeah, we're excited, so hope you are too, and yeah, we're just gonna see how this goes and, make changes as needed. So, thanks again.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll go ahead and close off the TV portion, and, we're still here.